What have you been? You've been doing like an Omni nose version of the Sci-Fi or something?
Yeah,
Or,
it's right here.
Oh,
Whoa.
there we go.
There it is. That's how
You almost just made another. You almost just made another one.
Yeah, so that's basically version 1. It's a little. I actually pulled the whole Sci-Fi pod in, so it's actually a little narrower
tail, yeah.
tail, so that could make it real.
Has Stu been riding these at all?
No one's been riding them.
Oh, you haven't? Oh,
well,
yeah.
actually, I did. If you remember, a couple of years ago when we first started playing with some stuff, I had a similar version that was kind of like the Evo with that tail and had that little quad hatchets in it.
Yeah.
And you had a couple waves on it, but that was a different template, a much blockier nose like the Evo. So it was. The idea's always been floating there, but it should be really bitey and be able to get some radical pivot out of the tail, and a little bit more planing area than the Omni too. So it could be sick for the wave pool. You know,
more for a small wave, yeah.
Yeah, it could be like, or just a little bit more lift. So the Omni's not really epic for a weaker little
Yeah, you need a good wave. You kind of need a good wave. I mean, like when I rode it at Cloudbreak last year, it was like 6-8 foot.
Yeah,
it felt really good. Like it felt like it lit up all of a sudden.
That was more than a good wave. That was that thing.
It's a great wave.
It was a great wave. It was a great wave, and it was like a slot car at that point. Yeah, so obviously this will give it a little bit more range. The Omni a little bit more range, and the kind of the juice of the Sci-Fi. So it's a good.
Is this one for you?
Like
actually, your dims or?
Yeah, more or less. It's kind of like it's just a prototype. I did two of the same file, and one's getting glass right now, and then it's a fairly obvious collab of two designs that should find its way to be something at some point. So I figure it's a good time to give it a go. See what you think.
And what have you found with like differences? Because some of these you run all the way up, and some you just kind of mid-length.
Yeah, I was playing with that heaps, like the depth of each individual channel and putting it all the way up versus back, behind the front foot, and I found just initiating right on your front foot is kind of the ideal spot, because anything forward of the front foot, you're kind of engaging the rail, and I felt like if you had any like high point of channels going up there, it kind of tracked the board just a tiny bit. Like it wasn't significant, because and it kind of depended on how much nose lift you had, where the apex of the rocker starts. But if it was like more of a flatter rocker, like these little boards, which tend to have less rocker, you just keep sliding it back and engage the depth of the concave beneath your feet, so you're getting the maximum lift right centered below your weight. Each feet's there, so you want to like offset that.
Yeah, all the work's happening there.
Yeah, and it's happening right there, and that's also where you're engaging your rail the hardest, is through the tail area in the middle, obviously. So, and there's so much figuring out about the depth of the channels, and how deep you go. Because if you got too deep, they started getting a bit grippy and a bit tracky, and started like just too much
bitey,
hold, and it's just a little bit clawed into the wave face.
Yeah.
It's
That's kind of what I felt. Weber used to make those curve fins. You ever see those things? Yeah. And there's something that felt really cool about it. Like you're on a track, but all of a sudden it felt limiting too.
Yeah.
It felt locked in, but also limiting. So there was something that could be there. So it's like you're always playing off that with the amount of edge you have or
and concaves. I think it's like normal regular concaves too, with like a single concave. You get to a certain point where the concave gets too deep, it almost feels like it's not as free anymore, and it starts digging into the water too much.
Yeah,
it's too grippy.
Taking over too much.
Yeah, it takes over. The board doesn't feel as natural under the feet anymore. So it was all about just keeping it a natural feel still, where it's like enhancing the performance of the board,
but also like something that like intuitively feels right. I remember hearing people tell me about Curran going to see Greeno, and he said, all right, stand on this template and we're just going to hand draw it out, like what feels right around your body.
Yeah.
So but then there's also okay, let's take, a dolphin or a great white fin or whatever, and actually take the template actually off of their body, and so you're using nature, but also like just your gut instinct, you know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, it always seemed like I always felt some affinity there, some connection with what I heard. Although I haven't even met George yet.
Yeah.
We've talked on the phone once or twice, but I always liked the idea that it was like blending like an idea with also nature.
Yeah.
You know, but then. You know, when we're talking to you, it's also blending technology of like a stealth bomber shape, or like, you know, or then taking something back from nature, like off of a bat to make the tail shape or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
So like putting all those elements together, you can overdo it, but you could also kind of keep it simple and...
Totally. Well, ultimately, we're just engineering a feeling, right? It's just an experience of how you want to ride the wave, like, and what you kind of want to feel, and then at a certain point, if you don't want to look what's already there in the surf world, you just start experimenting with, just like you said, with like drawing a template out beneath your feet and analysing the curves and how you feel it's going to interact with the water, and then you know, adding, like you said, like design from nature or design from aeroplanes, like why, you know, all these incredible amounts of money spent on the Air Force industry to blow shit up. You know, why not?
Yeah.
Why not maybe take a few of their ideas and use it for fun? But I mean, there's so many areas you can get inspired from to design a surfboard, because there's no real rules. It's all about an experience. So you can really just get inspired from anywhere, and then just go out and build it and learn what you've done along the way, and then just keep building on that. And don't just like write something off if it doesn't work. Maybe go back to it and re-explore it with a little bit of a different light, and all of a sudden...
Well, when you do something too radical, it can be so foreign from what you feel or are used to seeing or whatever that it doesn't feel good, because you're like, I'm not sure what that is. But then also, if you have a different perspective or a different viewpoint, you might think, that feels rad. You know, you just don't quite know. So something you hated a year ago might feel kind of cool now because you're in a different headspace.
Yeah,
but
totally.
like somebody was saying to me the other day, they go, you know, surfers are so conservative, even though they're like, you would think surfers are kind of like these expats, and like there's a you know, a long history of surfers being like out of the box, not traditional thinkers, etc. But when it comes to board design, there's a lot of just like traditionalism, like traditional ideas, and like conservative ideas about what a board should look like, what it should ride like, what, you know, what you could expect.
Yeah.
Like I'm seeing that even pretty radically the last few days, because in my first heat I rode a 5.6 squash at Snapper, and everyone's got a fucking opinion.
Yeah.
You know, and almost nobody's just saying, well, gosh, it looks like a fun board. It's all like, oh, it doesn't look right, or like everyone wants to be a critic.
Yes.
Like they know best, you know?
Right.
Instead of like, hey, that board flowed good and it actually felt great underfoot. Maybe it didn't throw the spray of a longer rail or a longer board, but there's, you know, take the good side of it, and how do you then implement that design into the next thing, you know, and be able to mesh the two. But, you know, the idea that it doesn't look like what people expect or what they want visually or whatever, then it becomes a harsh criticism as opposed to...
Well, especially at the level where you're at, you know, and like I was saying, where everybody has an opinion, but, you know, for Stewie, for example, you know, like he's been riding a 5.7 sci-fi all last year, and then I built him a 5.9 shortboard, which to anyone else, that's a real kind of small squash tail, it's nothing extreme, but you put it on him and he rode it, and it just looked extremely long under his feet. You know, it's like, it was bizarre. Like he was riding it, and it just looked like he was riding a gun. And even he was like, it's just too long, man, I can't ride it. And it's just funny to what you get used to and what you get used to seeing a surfer ride, you know, like,
well, also
he was
people
ripping
get
on it, and it looked insane, but, and if you say if he wasn't riding that, it would look fine. Because you get used to seeing someone ride a certain way, and you get like comfortable with that, and then you see someone surf differently, it doesn't mean that surfing worse or it doesn't look as good. It's just in your eye, people get programmed to think to certain visual points, you know. And
but you know, people get so stuck on a length.
Totally.
You know, and like you and I have obviously connected over like the idea of shorter. Maybe we're even stuck on that length, on the idea of length. But like the idea of having like less swing weight, like that might be one whole criteria for making a shorter board. But if you keep the exact same rockers you had and you chop the nose off, nothing's different except for the weight up there,
and
not the rail line,
totally,
not the so people get so consumed with what length of a board it is, as opposed to like what the rail line's doing, what the rocker's doing.
Yeah,
I mean, I can make you a 6.3 that's way looser than this 5.8 I can make you, because I can straighten the rail, I can flatten out the rocker.
Yeah.
You know,
I can spread the
fins out wider. All these different things. There's so many different elements to making a board stiff or loose or ride a certain way.
Or drivey or not. You know, that's everything. A surfboard is ultimately, it's the entire balance of all its elements. It's not just its template or its lack of nose or its rocker. It's just how it performs is a total result of all the elements involved, including right down to the sanded finish. You know.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and then the surfacing. Do you want glossy? Do you want sanded? Which is faster?
Yeah. You know, so like someone could be judging something on how it looks. Oh, its nose is not making it look a certain way, but it could be something totally different that's giving the effect of what they don't like or so forth. So
yeah, the first time I got a phone call from George Greeno, I got a message to call him. So I called him, and before he could even say hi, he was yelling at me because boards had pointed noses. I literally, he's like, "You gotta fucking tell everyone to round off their noses and fucking, dude, what is this?" You know, he's like kind of screaming at me like, "Hey, I'm not sure why you're yelling at me," but it made me think we should probably like come up with another round nose board.
Personally, I like the no nose boards. It's not because I like the aesthetic of the rounded nose, but I just like the feeling of having a more compact shape under my feet. I feel like I control the board better. I feel like the effectiveness of the surface area up front really helps you keep your speed, you know, and also drive, you know, a full rail turn. Like you can do really powerful turns on a no-nose board. I think the only thing that potentially detracts from the design is visually, from a spectator's point of view, is seeing the windscreen wiper effect.
As much over the lip, yeah.
It doesn't shine out, like pop as like, there's a 12 o'clock, because there's no hand to point to the number, you know. It's just kind of but after a time of watching it even on video or whatever, it just kind of disappears. It's just it just becomes a you know, a non-event, non-problem. But you know, I just the surface area thing, effectively putting the ideal surface area into a smaller package and extending the rail line of a longer board in a smaller package also just makes a lot of sense to me, you know.
Yeah, Jack Johnson said something to me, I think I mentioned to you about a year or so ago, and he said, you know, he goes like, I'm a pretty good surfer, like above average, and he goes, but I'm not doing air reverses, and I'm not worried about the air and stuff. So he goes, it's kind of weird for me to even think about wondering about your guys' board designs. He's like, I just want something that goes fast down the line, and I can lay on rail once in a while. I want speed, and when I want to change direction, that's it. But I'm not worried about errors. I'm not worried about like the super critical in the pocket surfing. Yeah. And I think there's so many people that think that that's important. Like they think it's important to like have the latest tech, the latest thing about a board. You know, the most highest performance shortboard. But there's not like the average person can really utilize that, you know. I see so many guys struggle because their boards don't have quite enough volume, and they, you know, it's not necessarily the right board for them. Totally. So like I don't know. I think sometimes you can hide, like a board this small, you can still hide a lot of planing in there, a lot of lift with the bottom contour and stuff like that, and make it a fun board that you know, an average or even below average guy can ride. Yeah. And even volume too, because it's more of a rectangular little shape. It's got a wide tail, it's got a wide nose. You can distribute foam into the extremities of the board and have the flotation all the way through the board, you know, instead of a really pulled-in tail that might not have a lot of tail flotation. So you can hide volume in there, surface area like we talked about, rail line, you know, and then the materials are even more flotation with the epoxies and stuff. So, but then in saying that, probably the reason the sci-fi has gone so great is because Stu rode it in the contest and shredded on everybody last year. Took me out.